I'm Monica, 61 years old. Just last evening, my son struck me repeatedly until blood flowed, all because the soup lacked salt. As I lay there on the kitchen tiles, dabbing at my wounds with a worn cloth, he strolled off to his bedroom, shut the door behind him, and drifted into sleep like it was no big deal. Like assaulting his mother was just another routine occurrence. When I stirred this morning, my muscles ached deeply, dark marks bloomed across my arms, and a split in my lip throbbed every time I spoke. Yet the deepest agony isn't from those injuries. It's the shame that gnaws at me. It's realizing that my boy, whom I nurtured with endless affection, to whom I sacrificed it all, now views me merely as his household servant. It's understanding that my sole role in life is to cater to him in silence. As always, I rose at 5 a.m. Ethan was up already, perched at the table in his sharp gray suit, thumbing through his phone. He barely glanced my way as I stepped in. Without lifting his eyes, he barked, "Breakfast, make it quick, big meeting ahead." Acting as though the previous night's outburst never occurred, as if he hadn't yelled insults at me, labeling me worthless and pointless, threatening to evict me if I weren't family, I fixed his scrambled eggs just so, with 3 scoops of grated cheese, paired with 2 pieces of buttered toast and unsweetened black coffee. Precision was key. Even a minor flaw could set him off. And when Ethan loses control, I bear the fallout. Midway through his meal, the click of a key in the lock rang out. In walks Savannah, his poised young wife, who offers me a phony grin and ignores my existence. Dressed in a pale green outfit and heels, she pecked Ethan on the cheek and claimed a seat like it was her domain. "Morning, Mrs. Davis," she cooed in that syrupy tone reserved for Ethan's presence. "Feeling okay today?" Part of me longed to confess that her spouse had left me battered, that my back was covered in welts, that I'd reached my breaking point. But I forced a grin and replied, "Doing well, thanks." Then I added, "Care for some breakfast, Savannah?" Ethan fixed me with a stern glare, his expression screaming warnings. "Say the wrong thing, and this evening gets uglier." He chimed in with his staged grin, the one for show. "Hey, Mom, check out this fresh makeup I got you. Ideal for hiding those minor bumps from your tumble yesterday." Yeah, minor bumps. That's his term for the violence he unleashed. Framing it as a mishap, like I'd somehow stumbled straight into his blows. I accepted the compact without protest. It was pricey foundation, over $50 easy. Likely purchased using my pension funds, since he oversees every cent in my accounts. He claims it's protective, insisting someone my age can't manage finances independently. In reality, I haven't touched my retirement checks in 2 full years. Savannah gazed at him adoringly, her eyes sparkling. "You're such a gem, darling, always looking out for your mother." If she only understood. If she grasped that her ideal spouse, the high-powered exec juggling million-dollar deals at work, unleashes his daily stresses on me once he's home. Post-meal, Ethan adjusted his red tie, snatched his attaché, and leaned close while Savannah refreshed her lipstick. "Recall our chat from last night. One slip about this place, one word to outsiders, and you'll wish you hadn't. Nobody's buying your story. You're seen as a deranged senior sponging off her kid." His threat sent ice through my veins. They departed arm in arm, the picture of marital bliss. From the window, I observed them slide into Ethan's sleek black sedan, priced at over $400,000. Funded entirely by my savings. Once the quiet settled, I collapsed into a kitchen chair and wept. Not from sorrow, but fury and utter powerlessness. I recognize the need for change, yet I'm lost on where to begin. I can't endure this torment indefinitely, but escaping feels impossible. I lingered there amid the hush for hours, tracing the sun's gradual path over the floor. Once, this home was my haven. I'd purchased it 3 decades back, using earnings from my stint as an executive assistant at Sullivan and Associates law firm. 4 decades poured into that role. Dawn starts at 5 a.m., impeccably punctual, streamlining the chaos of others' schedules. I never envisioned becoming captive within these walls. It began 3 years prior with Ethan's split from his initial marriage. He arrived unannounced one evening, luggage dragging, wearing that vulnerable expression that always softened me. "Mom, I need to crash here for a bit." He let me know that the split had wiped him out financially, that he'd lost his place to live with no roof over his head anymore. Me, the clueless parent I'd turned out to be, swung open my door and let him right in. "Sure thing, kid. This place is yours as well." What a fool I was. I had no clue I was letting pure evil settle under my roof. Those initial months felt routine enough. Ethan would rise at dawn, head off to his job, return after dark, and we'd share a meal. He pitched in with the errands to the store, too. I figured we'd at last build the bond between mother and child that I'd longed for forever. Yet bit by bit, the dynamic shifted. It began with minor jabs. "Ma, this dish is overly seasoned. Ma, you need to scrub the bathroom more thoroughly. Ma, those outfits of yours look so rumpled. It's mortifying." Remarks that stung deep, yet I brushed them off as fallout from his breakup stress. Next came his meddling in my money matters. "Ma, you're too old to juggle all that cash around. It's risky. Allow me to manage your finances for you." And me, the dope that I am, handed over the keys to my banking details. "It's merely assistance," I reasoned. "That's my boy." He wouldn't dream of causing me harm. Boy, was I mistaken. Within half a year, Ethan had seized full control of my funds. My regular $1 and $200 retirement check flowed straight into his possession. He'd dole out $20 weekly for my spending needs, treating me like some kid getting pocket money. If I questioned where the rest vanished to, he'd brush it off. "Ma, I'm putting your nest egg to work, making it multiply. Have faith in me." Then Savannah appeared on the scene. A gal 25 years his junior, flashing that flawless grin and radiating drive from afar. He'd crossed paths with her at work, where she handled marketing support. Half a year on, they tied the knot in a lavish event that ran up more than $100,000. Straight from my pocket, naturally. Once Savannah entered the picture, the situation plummeted. Ethan began viewing me as live-in help. "Ma, fix a fancy spread for Savannah and me. She's accustomed to upscale fare. Ma, tidy the spare bath. We've got guests of note arriving. Ma, hand wash that blouse. It's too pricey for the machine," and I'd comply every time. I went along out of fear he'd lose his temper, fear he'd act on his warning to evict me from the home that was rightfully mine. Sure, the property stood in my name alone on paper, but Ethan had talked me into adding him to the title, just for protection, he claimed. "Ma, what if something goes wrong with you?" The abuse kicked off about a year back. It started subtle. Unintended shoves at first, then sharp squeezes on my limb if I fell short of his expectations. "You're pushing me over the edge, Ma. You're dragging your feet." Soon it ramped up to thumps on the arm, swats when supper didn't suit him, and blows to my spine if I lagged in chores. But the previous evening marked a new low, one I'd never imagined he'd reach. I'd whipped up a veggie broth for the evening meal. Tuesdays call for something simple in our routine. I arranged the dining area with care, plated the crisp bread alongside the steaming brew. All seemed spot on. Ethan dragged in from the office, worn out, plopped down sans a word, scooped up a taste, and twisted in disgust. "What in blazes is this slop?" he bellowed, hurling the broth back into the dish. "Zero flavor, like sipping plain tap water." I rushed to atone. "Sorry, my boy, slipped my mind on the seasoning. I'll fix it right now." But no dice. Ethan leaped from his seat in a rage, snatched the vessel, and flung the scorching contents at my face. The scalding broth seared my skin. Shards from the shattered bowl nicked my mouth. "You're worthless," he roared, clamping my wrist with force enough to mark it later. 40 years behind a desk as a typist, and you botch a basic stew. You're a joke. He slammed me into the counter's edge. My skull smacked the surface, sparking lights in my vision. Yet he pressed on. A fierce strike left my hearing ringing endlessly, followed by more, one after another. "Savannah's hosting her crew for midday tomorrow," he snarled as I shielded myself. Get something impressive ready and nail it spotless. Because if you embarrass me, if you let slip even a hint of your inadequacy, I vow I'll boot you from here for good." Afterward, he cooled off like he typically does post-outburst. He knelt, lifted me gently, and dabbed the crimson from my mouth with a cloth. "Forgive me, Ma," he murmured tenderly. "It boils my blood watching you falter this way. I believe in your potential. It's tough love to push you toward improvement." Off he went to bed, serene as ever, like the storm never brewed. I lingered through the dark hours in the cooking space, sweeping up the spilled broth and jagged china bits. Each fragment I gathered mirrored the shards of my shattered self-respect. My mouth still trickled blood, but the ache ran far beyond the body now. It delved into a profound, shadowy truth. It hit me that my flesh and blood, the person I cherished more than anything, had turned into my greatest source of pain. While scrubbing the counters, memories flooded back of how things had spiraled to this point. Ethan hadn't always been so harsh. As a child, he was gentle and loving. His dad abandoned us when he turned 8, leaving just the two of us to face everything together. For years, I pulled extra hours at work to ensure he had all he required. I enrolled him in the finest private academy my budget allowed. I splurged on high-end outfits, funded his piano classes, English tutoring, whatever he desired. Perhaps that's where I went wrong. Maybe I indulged him excessively so he never grasped the importance of courtesy, hard work, or genuine affection. I handed him everything without expecting a thing back. And now, 3.5 decades on, I'm bearing the fallout from those choices. As the sun rose, I caught the sound of his steps descending the staircase. My pulse quickened, just like it does whenever he's close. It's astonishing how someone can exist in perpetual vigilance within their own walls. He entered the kitchen clad in his dark suit, scrolling through his device as he did each day. Today, he skipped requesting his meal altogether. He merely took a seat and expected me to bring it over. I fixed his scrambled eggs, poured his black coffee, added his pair of buttered toast slices, all without a word. He devoured it while replying to messages, treating me like I wasn't even there. At 7:30, Savannah showed up. She sported a form-fitting yellow outfit and stilettos that clicked sharply against the tiles like strikes from a mallet. She appeared glowing as usual. I pondered whether she ever spots the welts on my skin, the discoloration along my limbs, the way I recoil whenever Ethan elevates his tone. "Good morning, Mrs. Davis," she greeted me with her artificial grin. "How are you today?" "I'm okay, thanks," I fibbed, like always. "Care for some breakfast?" "Only coffee for me, if you would," she replied. "Something light with fake sugar." While handing her the cup, I sensed her glancing sideways at me. Her gaze lingered on my puffed-up mouth, the discoloration emerging from under my shirt's neckline. Briefly, I hoped she might speak up, inquire about my injuries, but she just averted her eyes and returned to her screen. Ethan wrapped up his food and fixed his stare on me. "Don't forget what I said yesterday evening, Mom. Savannah's inviting 3 pals for midday meal. Make it exceptional. Seafood dishes, noodles, Caesar greens, sweets, and grab decent white wine. None of that bargain basement junk you normally pick." He tossed me 3 20s, acting like it was a huge favor. $60 to whip up a spread for 5 when he drops that on one top alone. "Oh, and another detail," he murmured close to my ear while she wasn't watching. "Use that concealer I got you. Mask those spots thoroughly. If her guests probe oddly or remark on how you look, you'll wish you hadn't. Got it." I dipped my head, my fingers quivering a bit. He grinned, planted a kiss on my brow like the ideal offspring he plays at being, and off they went. The instant the entrance shut, I sank into a seat by the counter. $60 for a fancy spread. Prime shellfish runs at minimum 30 per pound. Quality vino adds 20 more. How can I pull off wonders on such a shoestring? Yet it wasn't merely the cash weighing on me, it was the strain of feigning composure around her companions, of acting like the cheerful matriarch in a flawless household, while truth be told, I'm a victim of mistreatment right here under my roof. In the lavatory mirror, I barely knew the reflection staring back. My mouth was bloated and bruised. A tiny gash sat at the edge. My eyes sat bloodshot and swollen from endless tears. The mark on my throat resembled an inky blotch creeping down to my chest. I uncapped the cosmetics Ethan provided. It was premium foreign concealer, the sort sophisticated ladies like Savannah rely on daily. I dabbed it on meticulously, concealing each blemish, each contusion, each trace of the turmoil unfolding inside these rooms. As I layered it, thoughts crept in of the countless occasions I'd repeated this ritual. So many dawns spent concealing injuries, crafting tales of mishaps and tumbles. I bumped the furniture. The wardrobe latch gave way. I tumbled on the steps, fabrication after fabrication to shield my boy's image. I headed out for provisions, checklist clutched and visage flawlessly adorned. In the market, I stretched that 60 as far as possible. I opted for icy shrimp over live ones, the most affordable wine that didn't taste awful, discounted noodles, not a cent wasted. While queuing to check out, an elderly lady neared. It was Clarice, the widow next door in her 60s, who's remained thoughtful toward me. "Hello, Monica," she offered with a kind grin. "How have you been, my dear? I hadn't spotted you out in the garden much recently." "Hi, Clarice," I replied. "I'm doing okay, thank you. I've simply been occupied with chores at home." She gazed at me closely, and I caught her stare fixed on my lip, even through the concealer. "Did something happen to your lip?" she inquired, her worry seeming real. My pulse quickened. "It's not a big deal," I fibbed. "I just collided with the wardrobe door yesterday evening. You remember how awkward I can be." Clarice knitted her brows but let it drop. "Anyway, if there's ever something you require, you know my address. I'm around most afternoons." Her offer pierced right through me. It had been ages since somebody extended real support, since anyone showed me authentic compassion. Briefly, I longed to spill it all, to plead for her aid, to reveal the horror unfolding in my life. Yet Ethan's warning rang in my mind. If you dare speak up, if you breathe a word to outsiders about this place, you'll be sorry. Nobody's gonna trust you. You're merely a deranged elderly lady relying on her boy's handouts. "Thanks, Clarice," I murmured plainly. "That's awfully thoughtful of you." I retreated indoors and began preparing the meal frantically. It all needed to be set by midday when Savannah and her companions showed up. I scrubbed every corner of the home, laid out the fine dishes on the table, and placed blooms in the middle. Perfection was non-negotiable. As I prepared the food, Clarice's remark kept replaying, "If there's ever something you require, you know my address." Was she on to something? Had the nighttime yells from our home reached her ears? At 11:30, my cell buzzed with an unfamiliar caller. "Mrs. Davis," a male tone confirmed. "Yes, speaking. I'm the auditor from your son Ethan's firm. We must discuss urgent issues regarding account irregularities. Can you visit the office later today?" My heartbeat froze. Irregularities, I'm confused. "I'd prefer not to cover this by phone, Mrs. Davis. How about 3 p.m.? It's crucial." I ended the call, fingers shaking. What mischief had Ethan stirred at his job? Why contact me? Dread knotted in my gut, yet I couldn't dwell. The girls were pulling up. The chime sounded precisely at noon. I inhaled deeply, freshened my cosmetics once more, and approached the entrance. Savannah stood there alongside her trio of pals, attired like they were headed to a runway event. Lavish outfits, luxury bags, footwear pricier than my entire retirement check. "Good day, Mrs. Davis," Savannah greeted in her polished tone reserved for niceties. "Allow me to present my acquaintances. Meet Beatrice from HR. Here's Brenda out of marketing, and Evelyn from the legal team." My chest tightened at Evelyn's mention. No way was this chance. I scrutinized her, and yep, it was her. Evelyn Brooks, my kid's sister, unseen for over 2 years. Evelyn mirrored my shock, but we both stayed composed. She's always outsmarted me, sharper and more sly. She instantly grasped the oddity, particularly spotting my painted features and jittery vibe. "Delighted to make your acquaintance, Mrs. Davis," she stated politely, acting like total strangers. "Your son's wife has shared plenty about you." I ushered them to the dining area, where I'd spread my finest linens, the porcelain set from my mom, and the fancy glassware reserved for rare moments. It appeared sophisticated, exactly as Ethan insisted. I dished up the meal, striving to hold my grip firm. The prawn noodles came out nicely on a tight purse. The Caesar greens stayed crisp. The loaves were toasty. I even whipped up a basic tiramisu for the end. The ladies dined and chatted about jobs, daily routines, and upcoming leisure. I shuttled between the kitchen, pouring extra vino and removing dishes, embodying the ideal host as expected. But Evelyn's gaze stayed locked on me. I recognized that expression from our childhood days when she sensed I was concealing a secret. During the entire spread, she watched me subtly, analyzing each gesture. "This meal is outstanding," Beatrice noted. "You handled all the cooking solo, Mrs. Davis." "Indeed, cooking's a passion of mine," I answered with a strained grin. "It's rewarding for such charming guests." "Ethan's fortunate to have a mother-in-law so committed," Brenda chimed in. "Devoted homemakers like you are rare nowadays." Savannah beamed with satisfaction. "Absolutely. Mrs. Davis manages it all seamlessly. It's superior to a maid, done with genuine care." Her comment cut like knives, but I held the facade. A maid, that's how she viewed me. Not as family, not as someone deserving respect and value, but as unpaid help. Evelyn coughed lightly. "And what was your line of work before, Mrs. Davis?" Had I always been just a homemaker? I hesitated, experiencing a rare surge of pride after so many years. For 4 decades, I served as an executive secretary at Sullivan & Associates law firm. I stepped away from it all 3 years back. Evelyn's face brightened instantly. That place was among the top-tier practices in the city, where she'd done her internship while studying law. "That's fascinating," she burst out. "I'm familiar with them. They're highly regarded. Over those years, you surely crossed paths with plenty of key figures." "Indeed," I replied, my smile turning more authentic. "Judges, district attorneys, top attorneys. I encountered them all. I even contributed to major trials. Mr. Sullivan often called me essential." Savannah shifted uneasily as the talk turned to my career. She disliked spotlighting me or dwelling on my achievements from work. She pivoted the discussion swiftly. "Anyway, Mrs. Davis is now retired and relishing her earned downtime," she noted with that insincere grin. "Ethan manages it all, her money, her requirements. What a dependable boy he is." Evelyn fixed her gaze on me as Savannah spoke those lines. I could tell my sister found them off-putting. A lady with 40 years at a prominent legal outfit wouldn't rely on her son for financial matters. The meal dragged on with idle chatter, yet the air thickened with unease. Evelyn continued observing me closely, clearly sensing something amiss. As I headed to the kitchen for sweets, she trailed behind. "Need a hand?" she offered, though her real aim was a private chat. "No, thank you. I've got it handled," I answered, dodging her eyes. "Monica," she murmured softly, addressing me by my true name for the first time that day. "Are you all right? You appear off somehow." Briefly, my walls crumbled. I longed to embrace her, spill the whole story, plead for her aid. But then Ethan's keys rattled at the entrance. He'd returned from the office ahead of schedule. "All good here, Evelyn," I rushed to say. "Just feeling worn out a bit." Ethan entered the dining area sporting that flawless grin he reserves for guests. He welcomed the ladies gracefully, pecked Savannah's cheek, and eyed me with satisfaction. The gathering had proceeded smoothly, per his instructions. "How's it going with the loveliest gals from work?" he quipped, deploying his phony charm for show. "I trust Mom hosted you nicely." "Splendidly," Beatrice responded. "Your mom is delightful." Ethan placed his hand on my shoulder, and I stiffened right away. Noticing, he gripped tighter, a quiet threat. "She's the greatest mom ever," he declared, though his digits pressed firmly into my blouse. "Eternally caring for others, forever putting family first." After the treats, the visitors began their farewells. Evelyn lingered till the end, and as she stepped toward the exit, she clasped my hand. "Lovely meeting you, Mrs. Davis," she announced clearly enough for Ethan to catch. Then, leaning in, she breathed, "We'll connect again shortly." Once everyone departed, Ethan shut the door, and his demeanor flipped utterly. The ideal offspring facade vanished, revealing the beast beneath once more. "You performed adequately," he stated icily. "For a change, no humiliation on your part." This wasn't praise. It signaled I'd met my obligations as his help. As I cleared plates and tidied the dining space, he retreated to his quarters to freshen up. Yet prior to going, he added, "Oh, and the tech guy's due tomorrow to inspect your laptop. He claims you visited odd pages." A chill coursed through me. That wasn't my device. I borrowed his only when necessary. And recently, the unusual searches were solely on topics like spousal violence, refuge for abuse victims, and support lines. He discovered my inquiries. He realized I was pondering reaching out. At that instant, my cell buzzed. The firm's bookkeeper from Ethan's job calling again. "Mrs. Davis, could you stop by at 3 p.m. sharp? It's pressing." I glanced at the time. 2:15. Ethan was likely dozing in his space. This was my opening. "Sure," I whispered. "On my way." I snatched my keys and bag, slipping out of the house soundlessly. Uncertain what awaited at that workplace, but sensing a pivotal shift loomed for my existence. Heading to the bus halt, Evelyn's promise echoed, "We'll connect again shortly." My sibling had picked up on the discord, and after ages, a faint glimmer of optimism flickered within. The structure housing Ethan's workplace stood as one of those sleek, central city towers, gleaming with glass and metal, imposing awe from below. I'd never set foot there previously. All these years, my boy had walled off his professional sphere from me, like a mystery off-limits to my knowledge. I ascended to the 18th level, home to the Northern Business Corporation's offices. A young receptionist with a polished grin guided me toward the accountant's room. My pulse raced wildly, so much so that I feared the whole place could pick up on it. Mr. Davis, a fellow in his 50s sporting spectacles and a crisp business attire, welcomed me warmly. "I'm Adrian Castillo, the lead accountant here," he introduced himself. "Appreciate you rushing over." I settled into the chair across from his workspace, forcing an air of composure despite the shivers running through me. His gaze carried a weighty gravity that only amplified my anxiety. "Miss, I must inquire about your banking details," he started, flipping open a thick file brimming with paperwork, "particularly regarding certain transactions we've spotted over the recent months." "I'm lost here," I replied, my words quivering. "How does my personal account connect to the firm?" Adrian regarded me with a blend of sympathy and worry. "Mr. Davis, we've uncovered that your boy Ethan has been rerouting company money into transfers aimed at your individual bank, funds that get pulled out from there soon after." It hit me like a punch to the gut. That simply can't be right. Ethan's a model worker. He'd never stoop to that. "Sadly, he has," Adrian confirmed, sliding over a stack of records. "Over the past 6 months, he's siphoned off more than $50,000 from business coffers. The cash shows up in his own account first, then swiftly moves to the joint one you hold with him." Everything around me shattered. $50,000. My child wasn't merely laying hands on me in fits of rage. He dragged me into his schemes as an unknowing partner in crime. "I had zero clue," I protested in desperation. "He handles all my banking. I never greenlight any moves." "We get that," Adrian responded softly, "which is why I reached out prior to any legal steps. You'd need to submit an official report on the improper access to your account. It's the sole path to vindicate yourself here." Nausea washed over me. Beyond the physical torment at home, I was now ensnared in monetary deceit. And the cruelest twist, my flesh and blood had made me his unwitting ally. "What's in store for Ethan?" I ventured, even as the reality dawned. With the report filed, he'll face charges for skimming corporate assets and abusing financial channels, grave offenses that could mean 5 to 10 years behind bars. I stumbled out of that space utterly dazed. For hours, I wandered the city center's avenues aimlessly, grappling with the flood of revelations. My offspring was a pilferer, an outlaw, and I'd served as his instrument all without realizing. By the time I reached home, dusk had fallen at 6:01 p.m. Ethan lounged in the den, glued to the screen like it was just another routine evening. Spotting my entry, he fixed me with his usual air of dominance. "Where have you been?" he demanded sharply. I wrapped up at the job and the place was empty. Lunch left everything in chaos. After years of avoidance, I met his stare head-on, refusing to flinch. "I went to your workplace." His face shifted in an instant. The facade of authority splintered briefly, revealing raw panic in his eyes. "What was that?" "I visited your office, Ethan. Chatted with the accountant. I'm fully aware of your actions." He rose from the sofa gradually, like a beast coiling for a strike. "You've got no idea what you're on about, Mom. Sounds like you're mixing things up." $50,000, I countered, my tone gaining steel. $50,000 pilfered from your employer via my account. Ethan closed in on me, yet for the first time in ages I held my ground. That day's encounter had ignited a shift within. Perhaps it stemmed from realizing I had allies, folks who grasped the full picture. "Hear this, you foolish hag," he hissed under his breath, laced with menace. "You're clueless about the stakes. That cash is rightfully mine. You've racked up debts to me for all I've poured into keeping you afloat these years. The meals, the shelter, your outfits? Aye, funded by me," I shot back. "My retirement checks, my nest egg, earnings from 4 decades of labor." He seized my wrist, but on this occasion I refused to yield silently. "Release me," I bellowed, summoning every ounce of my resolve. Stunned by my defiance, he actually loosened his hold. For 3 years I'd endured as his muted prey. Now at last I was raising my voice against him. "You're unhinged," he muttered. But the certainty had drained from his words. "Nobody's gonna buy your story. You're just a doddering senior who can't keep facts straight." "The accountant took me at my word," I informed him. "The paperwork tells the tale. Those transfers are logged. It's all on record." Ethan paused, absorbing it all in silence for moments. Then his features set into a fiercer scowl. "If you breathe a word, if you pursue any report, I'll ruin you utterly," he warned. "This property's under my name, too. I could toss you to the curb by morning, and without my cash, you'll end up isolated and miserable like some stray." But that day, his intimidation didn't shake me at all. Inside, I felt a new resolve, a resilience I'd never noticed before. "I'm done fearing you, Ethan," I declared. And in that instant, I knew it was genuine. After 3 long years, the terror was finally gone. He lifted his arm to strike, but right then, the doorbell chimed. It turned out to be Clarice, the lady next door. "Monica." She called out from the porch. "Monica, you okay in there?" I caught some raised voices. Ethan gradually dropped his hand. With someone around to see, he wouldn't dare lay a finger on me. His image meant everything. "Handle whatever she's after," he snarled, jaw clenched. "And don't you dare spill anything odd." My knees wobbled as I approached the entrance. Clarice stood waiting, concern etched on her face, clutching a baking dish. "Hi there, sweetie," she greeted. "Whipped up a bit of stew for you, but those sharp tones had me fretting." Glancing past her, I spotted another figure. It was Evelyn, my sibling, dressed in relaxed attire with her locks pulled into a ponytail, but I knew her right away. "Hey," Evelyn chimed in, acting like total strangers. "Just moved into the area and stopped by Mrs. Davis's. Hope we're not intruding." Ethan stepped up behind me, flashing his phony grin without a hitch. "Not an issue whatsoever, folks." My mom got a tad flustered since she scorched the meal. You get how seniors fuss over that stuff. Clarice eyed him with a look I couldn't quite read. "Sure," she replied. "Anyway, Monica, enjoy the dish. And keep in mind, if there's ever a need, I'm just a wall away." Evelyn locked gazes with me directly. "Exactly, Mrs. Davis. Whatever it takes. Anytime." Once they departed, Ethan banged the door closed. "Blasted prying seniors," he grumbled. "This ain't finished, though. Come morning, we're heading to the bank side by side and you'll endorse every document I point out. Pull back that report you've likely already lodged. Claim it was just a silly mix-up." "No," I stated flatly. "What the hell do you mean? No. I won't ink a single form. I won't withdraw any report, and I refuse to aid your schemes any longer." Ethan's stare burned with a fury I'd never witnessed. It was like every facade had crumbled, revealing the real beast beneath. "All right, then," he replied in a chilling serenity that unnerved me worse than his yells. "If that's your game, we'll play it. But mark my words, by the time I wrap this up, you'll regret ever drawing breath." Sleep evaded me entirely that evening. Ethan had barricaded himself in his space, yet his hushed phone chats echoed for ages. No clue on his schemes, but I sensed the need to brace for disaster. Around 3 a.m., an odd sound stirred from the garden. I glanced through the curtain and caught a shadow shifting in the foliage. Clarice was out there, rigging something by my pane. By morning, it clicked. She'd installed a tiny surveillance device aimed at my place, tucked away in the greenery. My neighbor suspected foul play and was capturing it all. The following dawn broke overcast and drizzly, mirroring the turmoil churning in my world. Ethan rose way ahead of schedule, at 5 a.m. I listened to him pacing the home, murmuring into his cell, gearing up for whatever had my nerves frayed. Down in the kitchen, he was already suited up in his sharpest outfit, that sleek black number for big occasions. Hair slicked just so, not flawless. He resembled the thriving businessman the world adored, not the fiend lurking in our midst. "Morning, Ma," he cooed in an oddly melodic tone. "Slept soundly, I trust." That faux warmth sent shivers racing. I understood my boy too well. His charms surfaced only when dark plots brewed. Yeah, I fibbed, pouring his brew like always. "Excellent," he noted, his grin surface level at best. Since today's shaping up to be quite the occasion, couldn't stop mulling over our chat from last night. He claimed a seat and tucked into his meal leisurely, like any ordinary household. Yet his vibe screamed caution to me. "I've concluded you're spot on," he pressed on. "Perhaps I've pushed you too far. You're my parent, after all. You merit dignity." His admission threw me off completely. Ethan owning a mistake, seeking pardon, utterly unlike him, so I clocked it as a snare instantly. "Hence," he went on, slathering spread on his bread, "today we'll visit the bank as a team, sort out this mess with my firm. You'll clarify that you greenlit every shift, fully aware of your fund's movements." There it was. That's the true motive behind his phony niceness. "I'm not doing it, Ethan," I replied, struggling to keep my tone even. His grin gradually vanished. "Oh, you will, Mom," he insisted, "since refusing means some really nasty consequences are coming your way. Are you intimidating me?" "No, Mom," he responded, draining the last of his coffee. "I'm just laying out the facts for you. Take a look around. This home, the dining spot for your morning meal, the comfortable bed where you rest, the meals on your plate, all of it exists because I permit it. And should I decide to stop?" He trailed off, letting the implication linger, though the intent rang loud and clear. He'd abandon me to the streets unless I complied. Plus, he noted, pulling out his cell, "I've been mulling over reaching out to a few specialists. I know physicians who deal with elderly folks facing cognitive issues, like senile dementia. It's heartbreaking when moms begin fabricating tales, blaming their boys for awful acts." A chill surged through my veins. He wasn't just warning of eviction, he aimed to brand me deranged and unreliable, ensuring nobody would credit my words. "Plenty of people can vouch for how your mind's slipping," he pressed on in that icy, scheming tone. Take Savannah. I mentioned to her just yesterday how disoriented you've seemed recently. Even the guests at lunch picked up on your odd behavior. It was pure fiction. Yet his delivery was so persuasive that, briefly, I questioned my grip on reality. That was his control tactic at work, planting seeds of uncertainty about everything, including my sense of truth. Anyway, bank time at 10 odds, he declared, rising from his seat. Wear your finest outfit. Get yourself polished up and flash a grin as you endorse every document they slide over. Got it. I stayed silent. Instead, I busied myself clearing the breakfast plates, hoping to stall while my mind raced. I'm addressing you, he barked, his pretense of warmth evaporating. Got it. Understood, I muttered, despising my own weakness. Ethan headed to his study but paused with a final caution. Don't dream of stepping outside. Don't consider phoning a soul. I'll return at 9:30 to drive you there. The moment the door shut, I sank into a chair in the kitchen and broke down in tears. Not from sorrow, but sheer fury. Fury toward him, yet even more so at myself for allowing it to escalate this far. I lingered like that briefly until a gentle rap echoed from the rear entrance. Clarice stood there, her expression tense and pressing. Monica, let me in quick, she urged softly through the pain. This is crucial. I unlatched the door and she slipped inside, scanning the space to confirm privacy. I caught the whole exchange, she stated bluntly. The camera I positioned by your kitchen pane captured your entire talk with your boy. My pulse quickened. The whole thing, she affirmed. The intimidations, the coercion, his manner toward you. I've got proof he's pressuring you to falsify details on the missing funds. For the first time in ages, a flicker of optimism ignited within me. How do we use it? Clarice grinned. My contact at the DA's office, Brenda, is an expert in family violence and monetary scams. But you must head out with me immediately. I can't, I protested. Dread resurfacing. Ethan forbade me from exiting the home. If he discovers, Monica, Clarice replied, clasping my hands firmly, pay attention. If you head to that bank today and ink those forms, your son walks away from all accusations. He'll continue pilfering funds and mistreating you. Worse, you'll be viewed as a complicit partner in crime. She hit the nail on the head. Signing would strip my self-respect and label me a lawbreaker. But if I refuse, I whispered shakily, he'll make good on his warnings. He'll evict me. He'll claim I'm unhinged. None of that's possible now, Clarice cut in. We'll submit the proof before he moves. Brenda assured me these audio clips alone justify his instant detention. I glanced at the timepiece. 8:30. Ethan would return in 60 minutes. Are you certain your colleague can assist? Absolutely. But we must leave at once, Monica. This is our sole opportunity. I resolved then to alter my path irrevocably. I retreated to my bedroom, snatched my handbag containing vital papers, and departed the dwelling alongside Clarice. Heading to her vehicle, I experienced a sensation absent for 3 years: resolve. At last, I was seizing command of my destiny. The prosecutor's facility resembled any standard civic structure, featuring endless hallways and modest workspaces. Brenda proved a sharp-eyed professional in her 40s, her articulate demeanor fostering trust. Mrs. Davis, she remarked upon examining the footage Clarice provided, what your boy is pulling off amounts to several serious offenses: spousal mistreatment, monetary deception, coercion, and trying to tamper with legal proceedings. What does that imply? I wondered aloud. It implies we can take him into custody right now, Brenda explained. But I'll need you to submit an official report on each of these violations. Would you be prepared to proceed? I glanced at the timepiece. It read 9:15. In just a quarter hour, Ethan would pull up to collect me for the trip to the financial institution. Once he noticed my absence, his fury would spiral out of control. Absolutely, I responded, my tone gaining resolve. I'm set to lodge the report. Brenda beamed. Excellent. As you complete the paperwork, I'll liaise with law enforcement to send a team over and detain your son. Any idea of his current whereabouts? He ought to be heading to my place any moment, I noted. He mentioned fetching me at 9:30. That's ideal, Brenda noted, reaching for her cell. Apprehending him at a familiar spot simplifies matters. As I worked through the report documents, Brenda liaised with the authorities. Clarice remained by my side throughout, clasping my hand and offering support. "You certain about this step, Monica?" she inquired. "Signing these will make it irreversible." "I've never felt more convinced about any decision," I assured her. By 10:30, Brenda's device buzzed. The call came from officers verifying they'd collared Ethan right at my residence. They discovered him raging wildly, smashing items and searching frantically for me everywhere inside. "He's now detained," Brenda relayed. "The accusations carry weight. Chances are high he won't secure release on bond." A tremendous burden, like one weighing 1,000 pounds, seemed to evaporate from my frame. After 3 long years, I could finally anticipate rest without dread. Returning home that afternoon, the scene resembled a war zone. Before his capture, Ethan had wrecked nearly all in his wake. Sofa pillows lay shredded, shattered crockery littered the kitchen tiles, wall-mounted family pictures lay in shards. "Lord," Clarice murmured, surveying the chaos. "How did he manage such devastation so quickly?" I held the truth. I understood Ethan's unchecked wrath when events defied his will. I'd witnessed that fury previously, though typically aimed at me rather than lifeless possessions. Brenda, accompanying us to record the havoc, snapped images of it all. "These will bolster proof of his aggressive tendencies," she clarified. "Vandalism amid an outburst of anger. The court will grasp precisely the character of your son." While we swept away splintered shards and gathered remnants of my shattered past, my mobile rang persistently. An unidentified caller. "Ignore it," Brenda cautioned. "Likely him phoning from detention. Allow it to record." Sure enough, upon reviewing the recordings, it was Ethan's tone, transformed entirely. Gone was the menacing beast from earlier. Instead, it evoked the frightened youngster he feigned to sway me. "Mom," his words cracked in the playback. "Mom, come bail me out, please. It was just a mix-up. I never intended harm. You know my love for you. You're everything to me. Don't abandon me to this cell. I'm your boy, your sole child." He'd sent 5 such pleas, escalating in urgency. The final featured sobs. "That's his ploy for control," Brenda detailed. "Initial aggression and intimidation, followed by playing the victim and inducing remorse. Classic abuser tactics." Though I grasped the dynamic intellectually, my son's sobs tore at me. For 35 years, he'd been my little one, my life's purpose. Distinguishing the beast he'd morphed into from the child he'd been proved agonizing. "You holding up?" Clarice probed, spotting my face. "This is tough," I confessed. I recognize my choice was correct, yet he's family. That evening, Clarice urged me to crash at her spot. "Your home's too risky presently," she advised. "Ethan's got contacts, possibly including Savannah. Retaliation could come knocking." She had a point. In the messages, Ethan alluded to Savannah managing external affairs. I couldn't fathom the details, but discovery terrified me. Clarice's abode was modest, yet welcoming. It featured a spare room with a single mattress and a compact writing table. "This was my girl's space pre-wedding," she shared. "Now it's yours, indefinitely." For the first instance in 3 years, I retired without apprehension. No concerns over Ethan's prowling steps, nocturnal outbursts, or abrupt assaults upon awakening. Tranquility felt odd, even disquieting. Serenity can unsettle when unfamiliar. "Come morning," Brenda rang with updates. "Ethan's bond session is set for 2:00 p.m. today," she updated. "The magistrate will determine if he walks free pending his court date. What are the odds?" "What are the chances he'll get out?" I inquired, anxiety creeping back in. Based on the proof we've gathered, they're pretty low, but I require your presence to give evidence at the proceeding. Your account will be vital for the judge to grasp the threat he represents." The session unfolded in a compact courtroom. Ethan occupied the defendant's spot in his bright orange prison garb. The moment he spotted me entering, his face transformed utterly. Gone was the remorseful kid from those phone messages. In his place sat raw, bottled fury. Savannah perched among the spectators, clad in her usual refined attire, yet she appeared worn out, like sleep had eluded her for nights on end. Our gazes locked, and I caught a startling glint in her eyes. Guilt. The presiding judge, a man in his 60s with a stern yet impartial demeanor, pored over the files prior to starting. "Mrs. Davis," he addressed me during my moment to speak, "describe in your own terms the ordeal you've endured at home over recent years." I drew in a steadying breath and started recounting. I detailed the assaults, the grip on my finances, the intimidations, the endless degradation. My words faltered now and then, but I pressed on. As I brought up the $50,000 he'd taken, I noticed Ethan stiffen in his chair. His attorney, a sharp-dressed fellow in his youth, kept raising objections, only for the judge to shut him down each time. "And what exactly did your son say to you yesterday morning about your statement?" The judge probed. "He warned he'd get me labeled as mentally unfit unless I fabricated lies for him. He claimed he'd evict me onto the streets, leaving me destitute." The judge examined the audio captures Clarice had obtained. He donned headphones and absorbed every bit while the room hung in hushed suspense. "Mr. Ethan Davis," the judge declared upon finishing, "the materials submitted reveal a blatant sequence of spousal mistreatment, monetary deceit, and coercion of witnesses. Given the gravity of the accusations and the peril you present to the complainant, your bail application is rejected. You'll stay detained pending your court date." Ethan lost it. "This is outrageous," he bellowed, leaping to his feet. "That deranged hag is inventing it all. I'm an upstanding member of society. I demand my rights." The bailiffs restrained him as his yells persisted. "You'll rue this day, Mother. Once I'm free, I'll ensure you suffer for every moment I'm locked away." His outbursts reverberated through the space, underscoring precisely the aggressive nature I'd described. Once the hearing concluded, Savannah neared me in the hallway. "Mrs. Davis," she uttered, her tone quivering, "we must converse." Brenda and Clarice grew alert, but I gestured that it was fine. "What is it, Savannah?" I replied. "I'm here to express my regrets," she confessed, and for the first instance in our acquaintance, sincerity laced her words. "I sensed the dysfunction in that household. The shouts reached my ears. I witnessed your injuries. I observed your instinctive recoil whenever he sharpened his tone." "So why did you stay silent all this time?" I pressed. "Fear paralyzed me," she owned up. "Ethan menaced me as well. He vowed to ruin my professional standing, my good name, and I cowered. I abandoned you to your pain because I dreaded forfeiting my easy existence." Tears welled in her eyes. "After they took him in yesterday, I uncovered files in his study. His thefts extended beyond his workplace. He'd siphoned from my private funds, too. We've shared a marriage for 2 years, yet I remained oblivious to his swindling ways." "What's your plan moving forward?" I wondered. "I'll initiate divorce proceedings right away," she affirmed resolutely, "and I'll provide evidence against him in court. I've consulted an attorney already. I intend to assist the DA's team to hold him accountable for the harm inflicted on us both." As we departed the building, a sensation stirred within me that I'd long forgotten: real optimism. I'd not only broken free from my son's hold, but gained supporters in pursuing accountability. That evening, en route to Clarice's place, Brenda shared further positive updates. "Ethan's employer is open to a settlement," she explained. "They'll forgo extra legal action against you in exchange for your help recovering the pilfered sum. Plus, recognizing your status as a defrauded party, They'll issue you $20,000 in restitution. $20,000. It exceeded what I'd accessed in the prior 3 years. And the residence, I queried. He insisted it bore his name as well. We verified the paperwork, Brenda assured with a grin. Your boy deceived you. The title remains solely yours. He faked some forms, but by law, the property belongs entirely to you. For the first stretch in ages, a viable path ahead emerged. One free from dread, where choices were mine to claim, where I could truly command my destiny. Yet I recognized Ethan wouldn't surrender without a fight. His warnings loomed. The hearing was straightforward. The battle was merely getting underway. 3 weeks following Ethan's capture, my existence had shifted entirely, though not in the manner I'd foreseen. Even though I felt secure in body at Clarice's place, mentally I remained captive to him. I'd grown a persistent anxiety that robbed me of sleep on most evenings. Each sound caused me to startle. Any vehicle halting outside the residence sent me rushing to peek out. Every unidentified ring triggered a surge of dread. Brenda had pointed out that it was typical, that following decades of mistreatment, the terror doesn't vanish in a flash. It's post-traumatic stress. She'd explained, your thoughts and form are accustomed to perpetual vigilance. Recovery will require patience. Yet it went beyond basic injury. Ethan had somehow sent communications to me from behind bars, notes that sent shivers down my spine. The initial one arrived via another attorney, not his primary counsel. It was a note scrawled in that familiar script. Dearest Mother, it read, I trust you're savoring your minor triumph. I hope you sense great courage in turning against me, but let me inform you of this. It's far from finished. I possess details about you unknown to anyone else. Hidden truths from your 4 decades at that legal office. Matters that could demolish not just your standing, but your liberty as well. My pulse froze upon scanning those words. What hidden truths? Over my 40 years as an assistant at Sullivan and Associates, I'd managed sensitive data, naturally, but I'd never engaged in unlawful acts. Recall the Williams versus the state matter. Mother, from 15 years back, I uncovered the files you concealed, the ones you modified to aid Mr. Sullivan in securing that multi-million-dollar victory. Files that, should they surface, might land you behind bars for tampering with justice. My fingers shook uncontrollably. I dimly recalled the Williams affair. It was a tough lawsuit where the practice defended a drug maker charged with hiding deadly reactions from a drug. Mr. Sullivan had directed me to sort papers, excising memos that might damage his side. I'd assumed it was routine, just duties of an aide. I hadn't grasped the full ramifications under the law, but Ethan was accurate. I'd effectively tampered with proof in a judicial proceeding. I hold duplicates of it all, Mother, and unless you withdraw the accusations against me, unless you appear and openly retract your falsehoods, those files will reach the district attorney's office. Picture the front page stories. 61-year-old aide detained for aiding in the concealment of medication fatalities. The remainder of the message outlined precisely how he'd dismantle my world if I refused to comply. He had connections in the press. He knew reporters eager to splash a tale of courtroom graft for a hefty fee. My image would splash across every publication. My identity would eternally link to the outrage. When Clarice discovered me sobbing, clutching the note, she promptly dialed Brenda. This amounts to blatant extortion, Brenda declared after perusing it, but we must determine if his warnings hold substance. What precisely do you recall from the Williams situation? I shared all I could summon, including the directives Mr. Sullivan issued regarding reshuffling the papers. Were you aware that your actions might violate the law? She inquired. No, I replied truthfully. I was merely adhering to commands. Mr. Sullivan assured me it was standard protocol to safeguard client privacy. Brenda exhaled deeply. In the eyes of the law, lack of knowledge offers no defense. If you indeed tampered with materials, even absent malicious purpose, you still technically broke the rules. My reality shattered once more. Right when I believed I'd broken free from Ethan's grip, he'd devised yet another means to dominate me. What should I do? I pleaded in anguish. If I abandon the case, he'll be released and end my life. If I resist, I'll face imprisonment for an act from 15 years past that I didn't realize was criminal. Start by relaxing, Brenda advised. Next, we'll probe precisely which files your boy possesses and their origin. And finally, we'll seek methods to lessen any potential fallout if proof truly exists against you. The ensuing days turned into a grueling probe of legal records. Brenda collaborated with specialists in archived matters to scrutinize the full Williams dossier. All the while, I endured endless fright, bracing for authorities to haul me away at any instant. Clarice proved my anchor amid those bleak periods. Beyond offering shelter in her dwelling, she emerged as the sibling I'd lacked. Each evening, she'd keep me company as tears flowed, brew soothing herbal infusions to ease rest, and repeatedly affirm that isolation was a thing of the past. Whatever unfolds, she'd say, we'll confront it side by side. You're not that frightened figure anymore, trapped in your child's reign of fear. But deep down, I embodied precisely that terrified soul. Ethan had secured his goal. He had plunged me back into the terror and despair that defined my existence for 3 long years. Just a week afterward, the next letter showed up, far more vicious than the initial one. Looks like you haven't grasped the point yet, Mom. I can tell you're still under the illusion that you can resist me. Suit yourself. Soon the whole world will discover your true character. Enclosed with the note was a sealed packet containing images. Images of paperwork, no doubt about it. Internal documents from Sullivan and Associates, bearing my own script in the margins, with modified dates and absent pages from the master records. These snapshots will hit the papers tomorrow evening. Unless you show up to see me in prison prior to Friday, you'll arrive solo. No attorneys, no observers, and you'll carry a notarized statement requesting the dismissal of every accusation against me, claiming it stemmed from a mix-up due to your psychological decline. My psychological decline, that charge that sent ice through my veins once more. Fail to appear, and not just these pictures will surface in the media. You'll face the videos as well. Videos. What videos? Did you imagine I was oblivious to the surveillance devices you'd placed throughout the residence? Mom, did you really consider me that naive? I've got footage of my own. Footage showing you taking payments in cash from company clients. Funds you failed to list as earnings. Tax fraud. Mom, that's another decade and a half behind bars. This went beyond mere extortion now. It was full-scale mental assault. Ethan had orchestrated this for months, perhaps even longer. He'd amassed proof, mapped out each step, and foreseen my defiance. As Brenda scanned the follow-up message, her face grew gravely intent. Monica, I require the full story of your tenure at the firm. Every action you took, any anomalies, any off-the-books payments you handled. I recounted the yearly holiday cash gratuities from Mr. Sullivan, sums I'd omitted from my taxes, viewing them as private tokens. I described the occasions when appreciative customers slipped me cash for extra efforts, amounts I'd likewise ignored reporting, unaware of the obligation. In sum, she inquired, over 4 decades, what's the total figure? Possibly around $1,000, I admitted, flushed with embarrassment. Brenda swiftly tallied it up. With compounded interest and fines, it amounted to roughly a $40,000 liability in back taxes. Yet the gravest issue was the classification as evasion. My boy had crafted an impeccable snare. Reporting him would invite my ruin through proof of my lapses. Refraining would leave him at large to torment and pilfer from me. There's an alternative path, Brenda proposed after deep reflection. One you'll never anticipate. We preempt him. We proactively disclose every one of your errors before he wields them for leverage. And we leverage that admission to illustrate how your child is a skilled puppeteer. wielding emotional dominance over those he ensnares, right from incarceration. It was a bold wager. It involved openly owning up to offenses, courting judicial fallout, and inviting societal scorn. Yet it also stripped Ethan of his prime tool, my concealed flaws. Should we proceed, Brenda pressed on. Your offspring forfeits every hold on you. He can't coerce you anymore, with no skeletons remaining. I gazed across at my vacant, broken dwelling opposite the window. That structure embodied my history, my errors, my dreads, but likewise my prospects, my liberty, my shot at renewal. Let's proceed, I declared at last. I've grown weary of cowering in dread. I've had enough of my child dictating my fate from confinement. Brenda grinned. Come morning, we'll deliver to Ethan a shock he'll never forget. The moment we chose to counterattack came swifter than anticipated. Brenda had scheduled a media briefing for 2 Mars p.m., where I'd willingly reveal all my prior transgressions ahead of Ethan's threats materializing. It was a perilous tactic, yet our sole shot at seizing the reins anew. That dawn, I roused with a sharpness of mind absent for ages. For the first time post-Ethan's detention, dread evaded me. I'd resolved on a pivot that would reshape my world enduringly. Oddly, serenity enveloped me. Clarice aided my preparations. I selected my sternest gray attire, the one reserved for grave events during my firm days. I applied minimal cosmetics, sufficient to avoid a worn appearance, yet not masking my authentic self. Are you certain, Monica? Clarice queried yet again that morning, the 5th instance. Publicly voicing this seals it irrevocably. Absolutely, I affirmed, taken aback by the resolve in my tone. 3 years I spent as a captive within my walls, dreading repercussions. I refused to stay shackled by bygone faults. At midday, Brenda rang with startling updates. Monica, something unbelievable has just occurred. Raphael Miller, Ethan's superior at the firm, insists on speaking with you prior to the media briefing. Raphael was the individual who uncovered Ethan's embezzlements, the very same person who went pale upon learning the full extent of the deception. I couldn't fathom his reason for seeking me out. Our discussion took place in Brenda's workspace. Raphael, a gentleman in his 50s, sporting silver locks and an aura that demanded admiration, stood up promptly as I entered. Mrs. Davis, he addressed me with a tone that blended warmth and gravity. To begin, please accept my deepest regrets. Had I monitored Ethan more closely or heeded the warning signs, perhaps I could have spared you this immense pain. His statement caught me off guard. You couldn't possibly have anticipated the turmoil unfolding in my home. Perhaps not, Raphael replied, settling into the chair opposite mine. Yet, I should have recognized the irregularities in the business's accounts. Your boy's pilfering didn't commence 6 months back. It began 2 years prior. My pulse froze. 2 years. 2 years. Raphael nodded affirmatively. Initially, the sums were minor, dismissed as bookkeeping mishaps. However, once we delved into the probe following your report, it became clear he'd been siphoning funds methodically over an extended period. Brenda shifted closer. What's the overall figure here? $130,000, Raphael stated flatly, funneled straight into accounts under his influence, including yours at the bank. A wave of sickness washed over me. Beyond the physical and mental torment I'd endured, I'd unknowingly served as the instrument in a colossal heist spanning 2 full years. But it gets worse, Raphael pressed on. Following Ethan's detention, our attorneys launched a thorough review. They uncovered falsified documents, tampered agreements, and even the peddling of proprietary data to rival firms. Why share all this with me? I inquired. For the first time in our exchange, Raphael's face softened into a grin. Because we're extending a position to you, Mrs. Davis, a real opportunity. In our scrutiny, we examined your professional background, 4 decades at Sullivan and Associates, flawless endorsements, expertise in intricate matters. We're seeking precisely your kind of seasoned professional to restore what your son has wrecked." I struggled to process his words. Rather than confronting custody and widespread shame, I was presented with a fresh beginning. The pay would amount to $4,000 monthly, Raphael elaborated, including medical coverage, along with a one-time $50,000 payout to acknowledge the unintended harm we've inflicted. That $4,000 a month exceeded my pension by over triple, and the $50,000 bonus. In an instant, my prospects seemed far less bleak. One stipulation, though, Raphael noted: we require your appearance as a witness in your son's court proceedings. Your account will prove essential in holding him accountable for every offense, beyond just those against you. Absolutely, I responded instantly. I'll go to any lengths. By 2 p.m., the press area buzzed with reporters, lenses, and recorders. Brenda had summoned the regional outlets, noting that a survivor of spousal abuse was set to deliver a key announcement on coercion from behind bars. As I positioned myself before those devices, a novel anxiety gripped me, one unlike the dread I'd known for years. This wasn't terror of Ethan, nor was it apprehension of the assaults or intimidations. It was trepidation toward liberty, dread of shouldering the weight of my own destiny. "My name is Monica Davis," I declared, gazing straight at the lenses. "At 61 years of age, I've spent the past 3 years enduring abuse at the hands of my son, Ethan Davis." I recounted my entire ordeal: the assaults, the economic dominance, the warnings, the ongoing drain on my savings. Yet I also revealed the element Ethan had demanded I conceal. Over my 40 years as an administrative assistant at the legal practice Sullivan and Associates, I erred. I confessed, my voice gaining strength with every phrase. Errors I was unaware constituted crimes back then, though I now acknowledge them fully. I detailed the Williams matter, the modified files, the hidden funds, the whole affair. I withheld nothing. My son unearthed these lapses and has wielded them to coerce me from prison. He vowed to broadcast them unless I withdrew the accusations against him. Today I'm stripping that leverage from his grasp. I'd sooner confront the fallout from my own missteps than remain ensnared in his schemes. The audience fell utterly quiet. Reporters scribbled frantically. The equipment captured each syllable. I wish to reach out to every woman trapped in mistreatment by sons, spouses, or companions. I went on. Psychological leverage, monetary oversight, dangers of revelation, they all qualify as domination. Allow not the dread of societal scorn to chain you. Autonomy outweighs any standing. Once the briefing concluded, Brenda shared that the district attorney's office had opted against pursuing charges against. She told me she couldn't absolve me for the errors of my past. Yet your willing admission, coupled with being a target of extortion, positions you better as a testifier than as someone on trial, she clarified. That evening, after months away, I finally went back to rest in my personal residence. Clarice made a point to remain by my side for the initial couple of evenings until I sensed full security. As I settled into my familiar bed within my own space, a sensation washed over me that I hadn't known in 3 years, absolute command of my existence. Ethan remained behind bars, confronting numerous accusations that would probably confine him for a long stretch. The hold of his coercion had vanished entirely since I held no more concealed truths. My cell buzzed. The call came from the prison, yet this time dread didn't grip me as I picked up. "Mom," came Ethan's tone, utterly broken. "I caught your media appearance on the broadcast." "So what's your take on it?" I inquired, my voice steady in a way that caught me off guard. "You've ruined it all," he murmured, lacking any fury, just profound sorrow. "You've shattered my final shot at freedom from this place." "No, Ethan," I countered. "You forfeited that opportunity the moment you chose to make your own mother your prey." A heavy pause stretched across the connection. "Will you ever pardon me?" he ventured at last. "One day," I responded truthfully. Once you've atoned for your actions, once you've pursued genuine support to transform, once you've grasped the harm you've inflicted, perhaps then I could offer forgiveness, but I'll never erase it from memory. I ended the call and silenced the device. The next morning, I'd launch into my fresh employment, my renewed existence. But that night, all I craved was tranquil slumber in my dwelling, free from terror, from intimidation, from manipulation. For the first time in 3 years, I was utterly unbound. And though the journey had been agonizing, though I'd been forced to confront my own missteps in the public eye, and though I'd severed ties with my son for good, I recognized I'd chosen wisely. Ethan had discovered that those harmed can grow resilient, that hidden matters forfeit their grip when brought into the open, and that fairness, however delayed, does ultimately prevail. And I had realized it's never too late to seize back your autonomy, regardless of how long you've dwelled in obscurity. This marked my tale of emancipation, a narrative I trust will encourage other women to shatter their own shackles, regardless of who forged them.